Good afternoon, I'm Riley Lachuk in Winnipeg. At noon, it is 18 degrees in Winnipeg this hour. Light rain still falling at the moment. Heavier rain into the southeast corner of Manitoba and northwestern Ontario. We're looking at showers tapering off this afternoon. Mainly cloudy, though. Still a chance of showers later on today. Our high in Winnipeg, 23 degrees. We begin at the law courts, where a Manitoba judge has sentenced a former doctor to 12 years in prison for sexually assaulting multiple patients. The CBC's Cameron McLean was in court this morning.
64-year-old Arcelle Bissonnette showed little reaction as Justice Sadie Bond read her sentencing decision. Bissonnette was convicted last year of sexually assaulting 5 women during medical appointments. In February, he pleaded guilty to assaulting 2 other women. The assaults all took place at Bissonnette's clinic in St. Anne between 2001 and 2017. The Crown asked for a sentence of 18 years, while the defense wanted 9. Bond sentenced Bissonnette to 12 years in prison. She said Bissonnette was in a position of authority over his victims, which warranted the longer sentence. Crown attorney Renee Lagimodier spoke to reporters after the sentencing. She says all of the victims showed courage by coming forward, and says patients need to be better informed about what types of examinations are medically necessary. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky may be eligible for parole in 25 years, but it is unlikely it will be granted. That is according to a University of Manitoba law professor. Skibitsky was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years on 4 counts of first-degree murder. Brandon Trask says given the severity of his crimes and the comments by Chief Justice Glenn Joyal during the sentencing, a parole board may not grant parole, but Trask says the fact he would have a hearing could be difficult for the families of the victims.
This certainly could be quite re-traumatizing for victims' families at that point. They'd have an opportunity to participate in the parole board hearings. But again, that would obviously bring a lot of this back to the fore.
Trask says Skibitsky's own words and actions will also be a factor in any parole board decision in the future. A Steinbach man is dead after his pickup was found burning in a cornfield Sunday morning. Mounties say they were patrolling along Provincial Road 201 near Highway 59 south of Winnipeg when they saw a thick plume of black smoke coming from the tree line. Following the smoke, they found the burning pickup truck. The 58-year-old driver was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators think the pickup truck was heading west on 201 in the Emerson area when it went over the ditch and into the cornfield. The heat of the truck ignited the corn stalks around it. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling on the federal NDP to stop supporting the minority Liberals and force a federal election this fall.
Jagmeet Singh is trying to delay the election until after February of next year so that he can qualify for a $2.2 million taxpayer-funded pension. That's why Canadians are calling him Sell Out Singh.
In an open letter to the NDP leader, Poilievre says the New Democrats don't have a mandate from Canadian voters to keep the Liberals in power. The NDP entered a supply and confidence deal with the Liberals in 2022, agreeing to support the government in exchange for movement on a number of policies, such as a dental care program. A court in Hong Kong has convicted 2 pro-democracy journalists of sedition. Foreign analysts say the verdict could have a significant impact on press freedom in the Chinese territory. Laura Westbrook has more.
This was the first sedition case targeting journalists in Hong Kong since it was handed back to Chinese rule in 1997. This publication, Stand News, was a leading online news outlet. It was closed down in December 2021 after it was raided by National Security Police. Now, editors Chung Hui-kun and Patrick Lam, as well as the parent company, were all charged with conspiracy to publish seditious publications. And in court today, one of the city's designated national security judges said when he handed down this verdict that the political atmosphere at the time of the offense was extremely heated. In this context, they found 11 out of these 17 articles to be seditious. These included interviews with self-exiled or jailed pro-democracy figures. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
And finally to Paris, where Kate O'Brien has won Canada's first medal at the Paralympic Games with a bronze in track cycling.
Oh, it's amazing to see the explosiveness out of the gate. And she is absolutely glittering around this track, the Canadian Kate O'Brien.
The 36-year-old from Calgary finished third in the women's C4 and 500-meter time trial. O'Brien raced for Canada at the Olympic Games in Rio in 2016, but switched to paracycling after suffering a catastrophic crash in 2017 and won a silver medal in her Paralympic debut in Tokyo 3 years ago. And you can find all of the Paralympic action, of course, on CBC Television, CBC Gem, and wherever you find CBC News. And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can stay up to date throughout the day right here on CBC Radio 1. Today in Winnipeg, 23 degrees, our forecast high, 19s for both Brandon and Dauphin. A slim chance of showers across the south still as we head through the afternoon. Thompson expects showers today up to 10 millimeters worth with a high of 18 degrees. You're listening to CBC Radio 1.
Hello and welcome to Radio Noon. It's Thursday and I'm Laura Hugh-Stratton filling in for Janet Stewart. Coming up on the show today, you'll want to call in. Pfizer and Moderna's latest COVID vaccines are expected to get the go-ahead from Health Canada after being approved in the States. And we'll find out why the updated vaccines are important and answer your questions about them. Give me a call for after 12:30, 204-780-0893. And we'll hear from a team of top Canadian paddlers heading off to an elite dragon boat racing competition in Italy. But first up, the doors open to a brand new school in Morden this fall. Coming up, the Western School Division Superintendent will share what is unique about the new facility. It's always exciting for a community to welcome a brand new school. École Discover Trail School opens this fall in Morden. The K-8 dual-track school will accommodate 450 students and has the capacity to expand if needed. The design targets a LEED Gold sustainable design and has a number of other unique features. Stephen Ross is the superintendent of the Western School Division. Hello.
Good afternoon.
So how long has Morden and the surrounding area needed a new school?
Well, for quite some time. The last school that opened in Morden was more than 35 years ago, and we have grown significantly since that time. So we have been looking forward to this for quite some time.
Well, how have you been dealing with all the overcrowding in the schools up till now?
Yeah, we've been working with government over the last 10 years or so. We currently have 19 portable classrooms, and are still growing at a fairly significant rate. So this is certainly going to help us in the short term, and long term, we'll be hoping for yet another school.
And has it been growing kind of exponentially lately, or has this just been steady?
It's been pretty steady growth. We're the community of Morden certainly is not anywhere near as large as Winnipeg, but our percent growth has been in the top 1 to 3 divisions in Manitoba, probably for the last 10 years. And so it's really crept up on us here. Morden also has a really active immigration program. Mm-hmm. And that immigration program has certainly driven our community growth as well.
So the school targets a LEED Gold sustainable design. What are some of the unique features?
Well, unique features about those kinds of designs are things that, would allow a building to function more efficiently environmentally as it goes. And so one of the things is there's a lot of natural light in the building, which is really fantastic. There's really energy efficient systems that are built in there, so that's an important thing. And there's also one of the other features we have is a large holding tank to harvest rainwater that will be used to recycle through grey water uses in the building, which will help limit our use of water as well.
And did that increase the cost, do you suppose?
No, I think that was part of the initial design. Over time, that's going to be significantly reduce the cost because we're going to be using water that we haven't had to purchase.
Right. Now tell me about the daycare.
So the daycare is currently also under construction. It's going to open a little later this fall, and it's desperately needed in our community. I think there, at last count, there was approximately 300 families on the wait list here. So there is this daycare attached to our new school that's opening up, and there's also a second new daycare as a standalone also opening up in Morden this fall.
So how many spots will that be altogether?
It's going to be about half, approximately 150 of the approximately 300 in the waiting list. So it's going to help, but it's still not getting us all the way there.
Mm-hmm. We've talked about the daycare, but how did the design of the school respond to the needs that were communicated by the community?
Yeah, I think we're really happy with our design. We worked with MCM Architects, and we've worked a lot with our staff. Our staff had input in design in all the spaces that they're going to be working with, and then we had a community open house, and the community was able to come in and give their feedback on what they would like to see in this project as well. So I think it's going to be a great, asset to the community outside of the school day for other things. One of the other additional things that the community came together to do here with City Council and the developer, we've been able to build a competitive running track, rubberized 8-lane running track.
Wow.
So that's going to be one of the first of its kind in southern Manitoba, and we're really looking forward to being able to host maybe provincial level events here in the future, which will be great for the community.
And besides the wonderful track, what other kinds of programming will now be available because of the school?
Yeah, so the school's going to be dual track. We have a burgeoning French immersion program here in Morden. Really has thrived for many years. So there's going to be dual programming going on in the building. And the school is really designed around, problem-based, problem-solving, creative thinking. So there's a lot of flexible spaces in the school. There's opportunities for partition walls to open up so classrooms can work together and collaborate. There's lots of technology in the building. We're really trying to be able to develop kids that are going to really thrive, in the future here.
Yeah. Well, back to school is always a really exciting time, but what are you most looking forward to when school officially welcomes the students?
Just sort of seeing the joy in the kids, on the first day. It'll be pretty awesome. We've been looking forward to this for a community for a really long time. I think the staff is super excited. And again, having not had a new school for 35 years, it's something our whole community is very proud of.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, it's one thing to get excited about your new backpack or your new runners, but a whole new school is really kicking it up a notch.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us on Radio Noon.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Stephen Ross is the superintendent of the Western School Division.
The CBC Music Top 20. CBC Music Live. All right. Savor the flavor of the Francophone world on C'est Formidable. Experience the next wave of Indigenous music with Reclaim. The global sounds of frequencies. End your day or start your late night with music on CBC Radio 1. Weeknights at 11, 11:30 in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
You're listening to Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, filling in for Janet Stewart. Coming up later in the show, updated COVID-19 vaccines are expected to be rolling out this week in the U.S. So our call-in is all about that because they'll likely be approved in Canada too. We want you to know, what does this mean for you and your vaccine plan this fall? Dr. Christopher Labos joins us in our call-in conversation. We want you to too, so write down this number, 204-780-0893. And in a minute, we'll hear from a top team of Canadian paddlers who are heading off to Italy for an elite dragon boat racing competition. All that's coming up, but do call us for our call-in and find out all about the new COVID vaccines. Taking a look at the forecast in the Winnipeg area today, mainly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers and a risk of a thunderstorm. Winds gusting to 40 this afternoon, highs of 23. It's pretty gray and gloomy out there right now, though. Partly cloudy tonight, lows down to 11. Tomorrow is a sunny day, though, with the winds west 30, still gusty, up to 50 and highs of 24 degrees. And looking ahead over the weekend in the Winnipeg area, 21 on Saturday, 21 on Sunday, 29 by next Tuesday. Here's a few temperatures for you. Brandon 14, Churchill 23, in Dauphin it's 17, Gimli 19, The Paw is 18, and Thompson at 16, and in Winnipeg there's light rain and it's 18 degrees. A team of top Canadian paddlers is jetting off to Italy this week to compete in an elite dragon boat racing competition. The Club Crew World Championships in Ravenna will see the best of the best compete for a title. The team based in Edmonton will be representing Canada in the races. The CBC's Pippa Reid headed over to their practice area and first met up with Coach James Eustace.
Attention, go! 1, 2, 3. Up.
Club Crew World Championships is something incredibly special because in each division, each category, it's the top 5 clubs from the entire nation. So you're competing against hundreds of clubs to get there. It's something that's hard to describe. Being there and having the Canadian jersey on and having the maple leaf and being there and seeing, the other teams have earned their bids and seeing the categories, and it's absolutely monumental. And for a lot of people, they get addicted to it, and that's where they start going, you know what, I want to be part of Team Canada.
Rotate. 20 seconds.
My name's Eileen Estrabillo. Typically, my role in the boat is sitting in the first pod of benches, so bench 2, and my role is to support the strokes who are setting the pace for the boat and making sure that the benches behind us are also following our pace. So that helps to foster synchronicity within the boat.
My name is Wes Cron. Tonight I was in bench 2 with Eileen, but I float around wherever coach needs me, left side or right side. I've been stroke at the front of the boat, all the way to the back bench and in the middle. Just kind of a utility universal paddler wherever the boat needs me to go, balancing the boat or whatnot.
Being with Team Canada is great, but you try out as an individual. This, we get to go as a club. We train together all year for many years, and now we get to go together as a team to Italy, which makes it that much more special.
Focusing on clearing those paddles. Nice little pop off the back, set up the catch. Perfect.
The challenging part and also the great part is that you could always improve. So you think you're doing it right, but like you said, technique is everything, and there's always something to improve with technique. It's never really 100%, but that's what you always work towards. Practicing a lot, so we do a lot of the technical work here, but when you're in a race and you're racing, you almost aren't thinking. You're just feeling, you're going with the flow, and you're in a flow state. That's when you know when it all comes together.
We were the laughingstock for a lot of years. People would sit there and go, who's going to paddle in central Alberta on a river when it's only warm for 3 months of the year? And now here we are. We have people that are a part of Team Canada. We're going to represent our country. We couldn't be happier. Everybody who's a part of the sport has a full-time job. We do this because we're passionate. Best case scenario, we're racing in 3 distances. We'll be doing a 2-kilometer race. We're doing a 500-meter race and a 200-meter race. It's our aspiration to get on the podium. It's our desire to get gold. Personally, as a coach, I think this crew has medal potential. In the 200-meter, we're going to be working for gold.
Perfect. So Pippa, as we head out from the dock, we go through a bit of a shallow section. So let me know if you can feel the difference in the boat here as they transition. Hip!
Hooray!
Hip!
Hooray!
Hip!
Hooray!
One for us.
Thanks to CBC's Pippa Reid for visiting the Dragon Boat team representing Canada at the Club Crew World Championships in Italy. The competition begins September 3rd.
Radio Lab.
Because of a clandestine interspecies love affair.
This American Life with Ira Glass.
In the movies, it's so simple.
Play Me.
In Zorro's household, carob was dessert.
The story from here.
David loves Sylvia, and it turns out it was carved there more than 60 years ago.
Wiretap with Jonathan Goldstein.
Maybe I will give that a try.
Telling Stories, Sunday night on CBC Radio 1 and on the CBC Listen app.
All right, well, okay, thanks.
You're listening to Radio Noon. It's just coming up to 20 minutes after 12 o'clock. You're at 89.3 FM, 990 AM. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten. And we have time for a tune. This is from Dave Whitty. Now, this is a guy who wears a lot of hats, TV producer, podcaster, voiceover artist. But Dave's latest song is about keeping everything together. It's called Ducks in a Row.
Changing around me, and I got nowhere to go. I see you carving your own way. You got your ducks in a row. Whoa, who would have thought we'd be frozen? We'd have to stand still in time. But if you wanna get out there, you gotta wait in the line. Yo-oh. So if you could agree, it doesn't matter to me. I think it's time to keep moving. We've got a long way to go. Time to keep moving. We've got a long way to go. So when you're searching for answers on ways that you can outlast, sometimes you just gotta wonder what's best to leave in the past. Oh, so if you could agree, it doesn't matter to me. I think it's time to keep moving. We've got a long way to go. I think it's time to keep moving. We've got a long way to go. And so if you're down with boots on ground, town, we'll look for it all. Just make the call. We'll get what you need. You can set yourself free. You can be happy. And then maybe you start to see.
Out of St. John's, that was Dave Whitty with Ducks in a Row. Well, it's Thursday. That's Word Day. And this week's word is part of a buzzy catchphrase that's suddenly everywhere online. It's even become the subject of a trademark battle. Here is a word nerd, Elizabeth Withy, with the story of demure.
Be meek, be kind, demure, be easy to find. Shrink and talk very little. Do not.
There's an expression making the rounds online right now, thanks to a TikTok creator's post about workplace style.
You see how I do my makeup for work? Very demure, very mindful.
Jules Abron from Chicago shared a video with her millions of followers about what does and doesn't work when it comes to clothing, hair, and makeup at the office.
The way I came to the interview is the way I go to the job. A lot of you girls go to the interview looking like Marge Simpson and go to the job looking like Patty and Selma. Not demure.
Over the following days, the influencer posted more videos on how to be very demure, doing all sorts of other day-to-day activities, even putting on deodorant. And it's since spawned oodles of spin-offs, both satirical and sincere. But what does it mean exactly, demure?
And you may be sure, way down deep I'm demure.
The definition is serious, reserved, quiet, even shy. And it's often used in reference to a woman's personality or behavior. In the context of fashion, demure means modest. The word comes from Old French, mûr, meaning mature or ripe, which gave rise to the word used in French today, mûr. And that comes from Latin, maturus, meaning mature. It's not quite clear why the de got added on, as in mûr to demure. It might be related to the Old French verb demeurer, meaning stay, but it could also be linked to the Old French phrase de bon mœurs, meaning of good manners. Mœurs in French today means behavior or conduct.
Portrait of a girl, canvas of ages, the stage is hers, demure and practiced beauty.
Does it make you very demure to use the phrase demure? It might depend on your tone. Many seem to get that Jules Lebron is being tongue-in-cheek, but some are jumping on the word trend earnestly, talking about very demure and very mindful fall fashion, home decor, and much more.
Be radiant but delicate. Memorize the rules of etiquette. Be demure, sweet and pure. Hide the real you.
For CBC Radio, I'm Elizabeth Withy.
Feminine. You're at your best feminine. Emphasize your
Very mindful, Liz. Very demure. And if there's a word you're wondering about, send a demurely written suggestion to wordnerd@cbc.ca.
Made a phone call, help me please, didn't dress for this
That's Prairie Joggers. Take it or leave it. Give us a call, 780-0893 after the news to talk about vaccines. We're going to have a specialist in about all the new ones coming up in the fall. But for now, the news is next.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Riley Lachuk in Winnipeg at 12:30, 19 degrees in the city this hour under a mainly cloudy sky. Still a few raindrops out there this hour. We are looking at mainly cloudy afternoon ahead. A slim chance we could still see a few more showers. Our high today, 23 degrees. A former St. Anne's doctor has been sentenced to 12 years in prison for sexually assaulting 7 of his female patients. Arcel Bissonnette was found guilty of sexually assaulting 5 women during medical appointments last year. He pled guilty to sexually assaulting 2 others that came forward. Bissonnette showed little reaction to Justice Sadie Bond's decision. Crown Prosecutor Renée Lajemodière called Bissonnette's actions a serious breach of trust.
Justice Bond, when she gave her decision, that she's giving a sentence that is higher than what we have seen historically for these types of offenses, and I think that's reflective of the criminal justice system responding and appreciating the harm that is caused by these offenses.
Lachemodière says the victims showed great courage in coming forward and says more education is needed for patients to understand which examinations are medically necessary. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling on the federal NDP to withdraw its support for the Liberal government. Poilievre says this is the only way to force an election this fall and remove Justin Trudeau and his government from office.
He will not quit. He must be fired. And the person to do it is Jagmeet Singh.
Poilievre sent an open letter to Singh calling the NDP Liberal coalition a disaster. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says there has recently been some good news for the economy that goes against the Conservative message.
They can see that good news is going to keep on coming, and I think they're a little bit worried about that.
An NDP statement says the party can walk away from the deal it made with the Liberals at any time. Well, to Japan now, where the strongest typhoon of the year has made landfall on the island of Kyushu. That's the typhoon arriving with devastating winds of up to 250 kilometers an hour. Already hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses are without power, with widespread storm surge and landslide warnings in effect. Evander Kane is alleging a man spat on his car and used racist language. The Edmonton Oilers forward posted a video showing part of the interaction on social media. In a caption, he accuses a white man on a bicycle of telling him and a friend that they, quote, don't belong here. The 33-year-old NHLer says the exchange was, quote, incredibly disappointing. And today is expected to be the busiest day for travel ahead of the Labor Day long weekend south of the border. The U.S. Transportation Security Administration says more than 52,000 flights will be taking off today. It expects to screen more than 17 million people at security lines between today and next Wednesday. Gas prices in the U.S., by the way, are 30 cents cheaper than they were at this time last year.
Thank you very much, Riley.
No problem.
Those gas prices every long weekend, it seems. It's crazy how that goes. Which reminds me, I'll be going on fumes back to Winnipeg Beach. Got to get some.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
That's Riley Lachuk with the news, and you can hear him, of course, throughout the day and on Up to Speed this afternoon. You're listening to Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, and we want you to give us a call. We're going to have the call-in portion of the show in just a second. Give us a call at 204-780-0893 or 204-588-7355 if you want to send us a text. And the topic is, I'm going to do some weather in a second, but I'm just going to let you know, the topic is the newest vaccines for COVID. We're going to be speaking with Dr. Christopher Labos. He has all the latest information, and we want to hear your comments and questions. But just in case you're wondering, what about that weather out there? Yes, there is weather out there. And for the city of Winnipeg today, mainly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers. Man, did it rain last night. Thunder and lightning. Whew. High of 23 today. And tonight, partly cloudy, down to 11. And in the Brandon region today, chance of showers this afternoon, risk of a thunderstorm and highs of 19. Tonight in the Brandon region, a risk of a thunderstorm and gusty winds, lows of 11. In Dauphin, a 60% chance of showers and risk of a thunderstorm, highs of 19 today in the Dauphin region and down to 12 tonight with a risk of a thunderstorm. In Thompson, today, showers, risk of a thunderstorm, kind of a recurring theme. Highs of 18, and tonight showers, still that risk of a thunderstorm, and down to 10, and local smoke late this evening and overnight in the Thompson region. Churchill, York region today, a 30% chance of showers with increasing cloudiness. And highs of 22, that's where the balmy temperatures are. It's up in Churchill. And tonight, some showers, winds north at 20, and lows down to 10. I can give you a few temperatures around the province. In Brandon, it's 14. Churchill is 23. As I said, it's the warmest place in the province. In Dauphin, 17. In Gimli, it's 19. The Paw is 18. Thompson is 16. In Winnipeg, it's 20 degrees with some light rain. There you have it. Plenty of weather. And now it's coming up to 24 minutes before 1 o'clock. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten. And fall is expected to bring another wave of COVID-19. Last week, in preparation, the Food and Drug Administration in the United States approved Pfizer and Moderna's newest vaccines. Health Canada is now reviewing the updated vaccines and is expected to follow suit. So what's your plan for avoiding COVID this fall and winter? Are you primed to get the latest vaccine, or maybe you're vaxxed out or just not worried about COVID anymore? Do you have any questions or concerns around vaccines in general and COVID in particular? Give us a call right now, 204-780-0893, or text at 204-588-7355. Joining us now is Dr. Christopher Labos, epidemiologist and cardiologist based in Montreal. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So what are you predicting this fall with respect to COVID-19 infections?
Well, if this year, if we see the same thing that we saw last year, which is the most likely option, we are going to see cases, stabilize and slowly rise over the course of the fall, and then really start to pick up as we get into the late fall, early winter. Influenza is going to, play a role in there as well, but we are probably going to see an increase in cases, probably very similar in scope to what we saw last year, which was not as high as we saw at the peak of the pandemic, but still was not negligible and resulted in a lot of people getting sick and a lot of people ending up in a hospital and putting strain on a healthcare system that, in these days does not have much redundancy built into it.
Yeah. How was the summer, just before we get on to the fall? Was there much COVID this summer?
There was some. There's always, the past few years have seen a late summer peak in COVID, which is weird because it's not what we see with most respiratory viruses. Like, there is virtually no influenza during the summer. There's virtually no RSV during the summer. These are winter viruses. And so it is unusual that COVID doesn't sort of play by the same rules. So there was a peak in late summer. I think a lot of, probably driven by travel more than anything else. I know a lot of people who told me that they traveled and then came back on a plane and then all of a sudden got sick and, developed COVID. And so there are people getting sick from COVID. The bump is smaller than what we've seen with prior winter waves. And so, as much COVID as there was now, I think the expectation is that once we get into the true heart of winter, cases are going to go up.
Sure. Well, let's go straight to the phone lines. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions and comments on this. Do give us a call, 204-780-0893, if you have any questions or comments for Dr. Labos. We have Sheila on the line. Hi, Sheila.
Hello.
What would you like to say?
Well, I want to say that COVID is alive and kicking its ugly heels at us now. I was sick last week, still recovering. I know a lot of people that have been sick, and the first symptom is you're very, very tired. A lot of the elderly people just think they're old and that's why they're tired. And then I know a couple that the lady passed out in the elevator, and it wasn't until then that they discovered that her and her husband had COVID. They lived in a senior's home. Everything had to be shut down. I just hope that if people are getting sick, test yourselves and stay home. Where I got it from, I have no idea. But, I'm out and about. I'm going to the grocery store. Who knows where I caught it from? I did have to take 2 days off work, and I literally slept 24/7. That's how sick I was. So I hope people are careful and they know that COVID is around.
Mm-hmm. And have you seen those sorts of extreme fatigue symptoms? Is that an early warning of COVID?
Yes, I believe so. I just thought that I was doing too much and I was just tired.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to feel sick, like flu-y and that sort of thing. And then on the Friday night, I came home and I just went to bed.
Yeah.
And then Sunday morning, I actually got up because I wanted to go to the grocery store, and I tested positive, and I tested positive for the whole week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I know a friend of mine, 9 days in, she's still testing positive. So...
Yeah, well, there we have it from the horse's mouth, Dr. Labos. Is this pretty much what you've been hearing and seeing too?
Yes, it is. I mean, here's the thing. At this point, if you have survived a prior COVID infection and you've been vaccinated, the likelihood is that you're not going to die from COVID. But that doesn't mean it's a benign virus. It can really knock people down. And, just having to be off work for a week, that has a significant economic implication to this country. Sure. And there are people, not a large proportion, but a sizable minority of people that have persistent symptoms that can persist for weeks, if not months. And so it is not a benign virus. I think sometimes people have gotten overly fixated on the mortality rate and say, well, there's no more deaths, so why should I care? Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to care if you're so sick that you can't go to work, or if you're left with persistent symptoms that linger for a very, very long time. And I get referred a lot of people that have persistent symptoms of COVID. Either it's affected their blood pressure, it's affected their heart rate, it's caused arrhythmias, it's left them fatigued, short of breath. And the unfortunate reality is that if you're somebody who has these long-term complications, there's not that much that can be done for you apart from being told to, wait. And these things do tend to get better with time, but it takes a while.
Well, let's go back to the phone lines. We have Mike on the line. Hi, Mike. Hello, Mike. Are you there? Oh.
Hello,
oh, yes, there's Mike.
Here.
Okay, Mike. What would you like to say?
Hi, my name is Mike, and I am not, at this time, I don't feel like I need to take the shot. My age, I'm pretty healthy, and I'm going to boost my immune system and stay away from processed foods, eat garlic, eat fresh fruits, raw vegetables, seeds, and nuts, and stay away from the processed foods. They put a lot of, stuff in the food,
So why not get the shot?
I feel that I don't need to. I'm not giving into any propaganda or anything like that. It's just a personal choice. Like, I feel like I'm healthy enough. I eat a lot of fresh fruits, raw vegetables, seeds, and nuts. I stay away from animal products, milk products. And, they put a lot of antibiotics and hormones in that stuff, and a lot of the processed foods I stay away from, So the body has the ability to heal itself depending on the food that we eat,
Mm-hmm.
And so...
And do you have a question around the vaccines at all?
I took the original vaccine. I took the Pfizer vaccine, and it went pretty well for me. I believe it kept me safe, and I believe that it did me well. I did not get the second shot because I didn't feel like I had the need to, but if I do feel like the need to, then I will. Yeah, I will. I trust the Pfizer shot. Now, my sister took the Johnson & Johnson shot, and she ended up getting hospitalized after that. So I'm a little hesitant to take any other shots other than the Pfizer one because I took it in the past, and it worked well for me.
Well, thank you very much for calling in, and I'll ask Dr. Labos for a reaction to your call. Thank you. What do you think of what Mike had to say about just keeping himself healthy through healthy lifestyle and so on?
Well, here's the thing. If you got your baseline vaccinations and you survived a prior COVID infection, you have, some degree of immunity to COVID. The problem with COVID and the reason why it has stuck around with us and didn't disappear in the same way that SARS did back in 2002. Everybody remembers SARS, which was another coronavirus pandemic. The reason why SARS disappeared and COVID didn't is that COVID keeps changing. And so the fact that we keep getting new variants and different variants means that your prior immunity doesn't give you as much protection as you sort of think it does. Now, if you're young and you're healthy and you have no prior medical problems, are you going to survive a COVID infection? Yeah, you might, but you are likely going to have a more severe infection when you get sick. You're going to have longer lasting symptoms, most likely, and you're more likely to have what we are calling long COVID now. So the point of vaccination is it's not a binary question. It's not, do I need it? Yes or no. It's reducing your risk. It's reducing the burden of disease. And even if you have, let's say, a moderate infection and you're sick enough that you have to go to hospital and have to get, 3 or 4 days of oxygen until you recover, that's still a burden on the healthcare system. So it's not just about, am I going to live or die with respect to COVID? It's about reducing the overall burden of disease and reducing the severity of disease, because it makes a difference if you can ride out an infection at home versus having to go to hospital, even if it's for a short time.
And if you out there in Radioland have any questions for Dr. Labos, do give us a call, 204-780-0893, and tell us what's your plan for the upcoming COVID season. Are you looking forward to the new vaccine that's been approved in the States and likely will be here soon? Are you concerned about your kids in school or people who might be at risk? Or do you reflect Mike's point of view and figure you'll just tough it out? 204-780-0893. And Dr. Labos, I wanted to ask you, I've often heard if you have COVID, and of course it will give you some immunity, or if you have it without the vaccine, it strengthens your immune system, and it just, it doesn't kill you, makes you strong, kind of thing. What do you have to say to that point of view?
It's sort of true. Now, the old adage of whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I think there's a lot of people suffering from long COVID who would disagree with you on that one.
Yes, perhaps.
And that's the problem, right? It's the long-term complications. Is like you catch COVID and that triggers a stroke. Right. You have COVID and that damages your heart. Mm-hmm. You catch COVID and you end up with an arrhythmia or fluctuations in your blood pressure. And that's really the issue. Yes, are you going to have some degree of immunity after infection? Yes, of course you will, as you will with all or with most infections. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. If COVID was something where you caught it, you recovered, you had your baseline vaccination, you're not going to die, a lot of people would have said, it's like, okay, you just ride it out. It's really the long-term complications of COVID that are causing the issue, and is why we're still talking about it, because you don't want to find out 20 years from now that repetitive COVID infections have neurological or cardiovascular implications, sure. which is actually even true with regarding to influenza. I think a lot of people don't appreciate that influenza infections do increase your risk of cardiovascular disease. So repetitive infections are not a good thing. And so the more we can minimize that, the better off we're going to be in the long term.
All right. Well, let's return to the phone lines. And Gord is on the line. Hi, Gord.
Hi there.
What would you like to ask?
Well, it's interesting. I'm a 72-year-old male. I've had the vaccination, I think, 5 doses now. And last one was December of last year. My wife and I became ill a couple days ago. My wife, we decided to test to see if it was COVID. My wife tested positive. I tested negative, but we both have the same symptoms. The question, so I'm assuming it's a false negative, although I guess I will test again either today or tomorrow just to see what's going on. The question I have is that it's fairly mild. I had the tiredness, sore throat, and basically both my wife and I had the same symptoms. What's the best way to treat that? Is just taking ibuprofen or acetaminophen, or how should we be dealing with this?
Yeah, so the best way to treat symptoms is what we call supportive care. So you would treat the symptoms in the same way that you treat any other viral symptoms. If you have a fever and it's causing you symptoms, take any type of anti-fever medication, whether it's Tylenol or ibuprofen. As a general rule, we tend to prefer Tylenol if people have no other problems with it, just because anti-inflammatories like Advil and ibuprofen can increase your blood pressure. They can increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. They increase the risk of stomach ulcers. And so we tend to prefer Tylenol, which doesn't have the same type of side effects. But otherwise, yeah, if you don't need supplemental oxygen and there's no reason for you to go to hospital, you just sort of ride it out and you treat it symptomatically. Antiviral medications like Paxlovid do exist, but for mild symptoms, it's probably not necessary to start that medication, given the associated costs and some of the side effects that go along with it. So for mild infections like this, yeah, it's really just stay at home and ride it out and try not to infect anybody else.
Well, Gord, I hope you and your wife recover quickly.
Yes, so do I. How long do you think we need to isolate?
So if you can isolate until you test negative, that is the ideal. Because of the issue with false negatives, sometimes it's hard to know exactly when your system clears the virus. But if you are getting better, if your symptoms are gone, and if it's been more than 5 days and certainly more than 7 days, at that point, it's unlikely that you're going to infect somebody else. You just really have to give it time recover fully. And if you have the capacity to test negative, that's even better.
Thanks very much for your call. And Dr. Labas, we have other people on the line, but I did want to get in while we're still on the air. What can you tell us about these updated vaccines? How are they different?
Well, they're different in that they are directed against a different variant. So the previous vaccines that were rolled out last year were directed against the XBB variant. The ones that are going to be rolled out in the fall are going to be directed against KP2. So it's closer. It's a closer match to the variants that are going to be circulating in the fall. Right now, it's actually KP3 that seems to be overtaking KP2. But the whole point of doing an updated vaccine for COVID, not unlike with influenza, is you're trying to match it as closely as possible to the circulating variants, so you get as good an immune response as possible. So it's actually not the same vaccines that have come before. It is going to be, in a sense, completely different.
I see. We have Dean on the line. Hello, Dean. Do you have a question?
Hi. Yeah, I was wondering, I can't hear myself here, but I'm wondering, a lot of countries have stopped giving the vaccine to younger children. And I'm wondering what our position is in Canada on that and why they would do it and we wouldn't.
Yeah. So you have to be a little bit careful about this. There's a lot of people who use slightly inaccurate language on the internet, if I can say that diplomatically. It's not that countries have banned the vaccine in children, but they've adopted a selective vaccination strategy to target their vaccination efforts at the highest risk groups, which is, in a sense, what's been going on in Canada. The vaccine rollouts that are being done by the various provincial agencies are really focusing their energy on high-risk groups, people in nursing homes, people in long-term care, because those are the ones that are having the highest chances of complications. Now, anyone can catch COVID. I think there was a misconception at the beginning of the pandemic that children can't catch COVID. They obviously can. They can get severely sick. It's less likely that they will get severely sick compared to an older adult. But it always becomes a question. If you were in charge of public health, how would you allocate a finite number of resources? And most people would say, we're going to target the highest risk groups, but the vaccines are approved for everybody. And, even children can have long-term complications. So, you can weigh the risk benefits and say, I don't think it's worth the benefits to vaccinate children. I personally would disagree with that assessment because we have seen we have seen children die of COVID. Again, not in large numbers, but it does happen. And the more we can have a robust vaccine rollout, the better off we're going to be as a whole. And a lot of this also is not thinking about you and your risk as an individual, but to think of the population as a whole and realizing that a more robust vaccine rollout benefits all of us on average, even if it doesn't benefit you as an individual.
Well, I hope that answers your question, Dean. I guess it did. Thank you very much for calling. Give us a call. We still have a couple minutes left in the show and a little bit of room. Give us a call at 204-780-0893 if you have a question or a comment for Dr. Labos about COVID season coming up, and there will be a tweaked vaccine for us all to take advantage of if we can. And let's see, what do we have here? Oh, Pat called to tell us that COVID is alive and well. She had it, she says, still has remnants of it, and the worst symptoms were runny nose and cough. So she says, for people to think it is gone, they're wrong. And I think that's probably why vaccines are present today. And in fact, who should get it first, or do you recommend everybody get it when there's a chance?
Yeah, just to simplify the messaging, who are the vaccines for? The vaccines are for everyone. Now, who are the highest risk groups? The people for whom it is most imperative to get it? Anyone who is older. And, we can debate what the age threshold of older means. The old joke is it's always 10 years older than the person that you're speaking to.
Right.
But definitely anybody over the age of 65 should strongly consider getting vaccinated. Anybody who's immunocompromised and anybody who has an active medical problem that puts them at increased risk. So any heart, lung, kidney disease. And, that ends up being a fairly large chunk of our population. So again, Not everybody benefits equally from every intervention. The higher risk you are, the more imperative and the more benefit you get from vaccination. But we are all at risk for COVID. We're all at risk of long complications of COVID. And even if for no other reason than that, reducing the risk of long COVID is probably the single best justification that you can have for getting the vaccine, even if you think that you are at low risk for serious complications because you're young and otherwise healthy.
And what about the phenomenon of COVID vaccine fatigue, where people might be prone to getting it, but they feel that they just don't have that sense of urgency anymore?
Yeah, and I mean, this is a problem. It's a problem with influenza. It's a problem with many childhood vaccinations, which is why vaccination is such a top priority of public health across this country and across the world. Here's the point. The point of vaccinate, you don't roll out vaccines when things are bad. You roll out vaccines so that things stay good. So if you're saying to yourself, hey, you know what, I'm not as worried about COVID now as I was in 2020, well, that is due in large part to the fact that we had a fairly good vaccine rollout in this country. Mm-hmm. So come the winter, we are going to see more COVID, we're going to see more influenza, we're going to see more RSV, and the more robust our vaccine rollout is, the better off we're going to be, the fewer people we'll see in a hospital, and the more healthcare resources we're going to have to treat all the other stuff that people are getting sick from, like heart disease and like cancer. Remember, we have a finite number of healthcare resources in this country. We have a finite number of hospital beds. We have a finite number of doctors and nurses to staff them.
Sure.
The more we take up resources with COVID, the less we're going to have for everything else.
All right. Well, I think we're going to try and squeeze in one more caller on the line. Hello, Adam.
Hi there.
Hi. What's your comment? We're running out of time, but please speak right up.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. And this was already spoken to, but just the importance of the herd immunity, the importance of everybody getting vaccinated so that the weaker of us in society are also protected. Somebody phoned in and said that he eats well and he feels healthy and he doesn't feel at risk personally, but that's kind of only part of the point. The other comment that I make is that a lot of people say that I know somebody who took a vaccine and they wound up in the hospital. Sometimes I think that has to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt. If you ask just a few more questions as to why that person was hospitalized, often you realize, oh, actually it wasn't the taking of the vaccine that landed that person in the hospital. And I think we all have to be careful about what we hear from a sister's brother's friend or read online.
Well, thank you very much. Oh, I think we just lost Adam there, but Adam got the last word there. Dr. Christopher Labos, thank you very much for being with us. It was a very lively discussion and very informative from you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. You take care.
Bye-bye. That's Dr. Christopher Labos. He's an epidemiologist and cardiologist based in Montreal. And of course, we'll want to hear from you on a different topic again tomorrow. But for now, host Faith Fundal has just stepped into the studio and will tell us what's on Up to Speed. Hi, Faith.
Hello, Lori. We're going to hear from the city councillor, about from Charleswood Tuxedo Westwood Ward about an intersection on Wilkes and Elmhurst. It is a contentious one because folks have been asking for a traffic signal there. But it's not something that will be able to be done right away. He's going to join us on the program to talk more about what he's calling for and what his constituents are calling for as well.
I think that'll be, as they say, a talker.
It's going to be a talker indeed, yes.
Thanks very much, Faith.
Thank you.
That's host Faith Fundal. And you can hear them this afternoon from 3 to 6 on Up to Speed with that story about Wilkes and many others as well. And join us again tomorrow. You are listening to the last few seconds of Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoogstraat. It's been very nice talking to you. And be sure and call us on our call-in portion tomorrow. I'll give you a hint of that tomorrow morning when I have a word with Marcy. Have a pleasant afternoon. Good to see you. Bye-bye.